Hi everyone guys, today I want to show you another important issue for development economics. That's the role of interlinked transactions, especially in the less developed contexts. Here you have the image, the photo of a peasant watching on his own land, and we may ask ourselves, why have I chosen this photo? I hope in a few minutes you will be able to understand why and why this photo is really important to represent the issue I'm gonna talk with you. So we can start by saying that this is an issue that's very related to the 2030 agenda and to many sustainable development goals by starting from the first and going to the second on zero hunger, then to the third, to the eighth, to the ninth, to the 10th, to the 11th, and to the 12th. And we can start by saying that credit institutions are very different from rural to urban areas, especially in developing contexts. By looking to the developed context and to the urban areas of developed context, but also of some less developed countries, we can say that we have faced a very important change by starting from the 80s. And in the 80s, guys, you have the introduction and the spread of the ITMs. In the 90s, you have the spread of many databases, allowing the financial institution to leave the sheets on the credit history of many borrowers and of many creditors. In the 2000s, you have spread of the smartphones, allowing people to do transactions by using their mobile phones. In the 2010s, you have the spread of the cryptocurrency, and to this year you have the president of the European Commission, von der Leyen, that is seriously thinking about creating a digital currency for Europe. So, in other words, we have faced a progressive dematerialization of the financial institutions all over the developed and advanced world. So, by moving to the rural areas, and especially by thinking about the less developed economies, we have to say that these economies are based on agriculture, especially by thinking to the rural areas. We have the 80–90% of people that work by using agricultural inputs and by using the harvest that can be sold in the market or used for personal consumption. But the main problem of these people, of the peasants working in this rural context, is represented by the lack of access to credit institutions. And we can say that one of the main consequences is the fact that people cannot do consumption all over the year without any problem and have to smooth their consumption, have to smooth their saving by having not access to credit institution whenever they want. Another important problem that's linked with the lack of access to credit institution is represented by the credit market segmentation. That's a very important characteristic of the financial market of less developed economies, and in particular is characterized by interest rates that go from the lowest, so of 1%, to the highest of all over the world by worthing about 80% of all the credits that has been done. Another important problem is related to the fact that the financial intermediaries suffer of asymmetric information towards the credit history of the rural borrowers, who have no so high collaterals, so high guarantees to prove their statement, to prove their reliability. By having a more macro view, we can say that there is also a very important lack of infrastructures, which doesn't connect the rural areas to the urban areas and so to the financial credit institutions, especially when thinking about the communication ways. So, when thinking about the roads, which are not so developed and so well built in some rural context to enable people to have access to financial institution also when they can have access to these financial institutions. And another important element is represented by the fact that the central government don't have a good attention, don't pay a good attention to the situation, to the problem of this lack of access. And so there aren't enough policies to improve. But we have to do a very big difference between the formal and the informal credit institutions. In particular, by thinking about informal ones, we have to say that these are very, very spread on the less developed economies, and particular in the rural context. And when thinking about the agriculture context, we can say that here this is the main place where interlinked transactions work. And for example, this work in case of sharecropping or tenancy contracts. A peasant may ask for credit to his landlord in difficult situation. So the landlord will give credit for lower interest rates, and the tenants will be encouraged to repay this credit by giving in change the future harvest will do to his own landlord, or by repaying the debt by giving more credits than the one that's asked by the tenancy contract. Another case of interlinked transaction is the one between tenant and traders. In this case, you have local traders in the markets selling crops, selling harvest, and they usually can be also interlinkers with their own tenants, with the peasants that sell normally their own crops. And in particular, the tenants can ask for loans to the traders in situation of lack of harvest, and in change will provide of harvest during the harvest period with a lower price to the traders. So these contracts are not based on the use of database, are not based on use of mobile phones or of collaterals, but are based on the hands, are based on trust. The interlinked transaction imply a materialization of the financial intermediaries. And differently from the normal transaction that happen in the credit market are based on something else, are based on something that's informal. But they complete the market by providing access to poor people to the credit. And they reduce the information asymmetries between the creditor and the debtor. And then they improve the contract and the credit contract by adding to the credit transaction another type of transaction that can be the one related to the product or related to the rent of the land. Another important element is that the interlinked transaction can improve the efficiency of the peasants in doing their own tasks because they are encouraged in producing more harvest in order to repay the loan. But we have to say that this interlinked transaction, being informal transaction, are based also on informal norms or non-written rules, and in particular on moral sanctions. With respect to the credit formal institutions that are based on credit sanctions, if they don't repay the loan, here the borrowers suffer also of other type of sanctions such as the ostracism and so the exclusion from the community, which are very higher, very higher, very important, very more important than the normal sanction and have higher impact on their own well-being. Another important element is that Baduri in 1973 argued that this interlinked transaction may prevent the adoption of more productive technologies because the landlord may be encouraged to keep its own power by avoiding that the peasant become more productive and by the way will not need credit from his peasant at all. So the interlinked transactions are not the answer. There is the need of alternatives to this informal institution to improve the access to credit of the poor people. And one solution, guys, that identifies is the microcredit institutions. So one of the main solution to improve the access of poor people is represented by formal institution that's based on giving microloans and not so big loans. These microfinance institutions are based on self-selection, self-monitoring, and credit rotation. Why? Because here you have usually a group of a restricted group of people asking for a loan. So people are encouraged to self-select, to self-monitoring, and to avoid that a member doesn't repay its part of the loan because otherwise they will have to repay for him. And at the same time, microcredit institution allow rotating the credit in a weekly or monthly manner between the members of the credit group. A type of this microcredit institution is represented by the Grameen Bank. Grameen Bank allows the participation of 5 members per each group and is very spread in Bangladesh, where it takes in account about more than 2,000 branches and was founded in the 80s by Muhammad Yunus. Here you have a link to Grameen Bank, so you will have more info. You will know how a microfinance institution works. We have to say that microfinance institutions count about 140 million people across the world. And according to the Microfinance Barometer, in 2019, the 65% of the people, of the borrowers of the microfinance institutions were from rural areas. And the 80% of them were women. So they improve also the gender equality by empowering women which have more responsibility in managing money that have to be used not only for productive reasons but also for the family. So by trying to find alternatives to such arguable, such questionable type of informal institutions, we have to adopt a bottom-up approach. We have to start by looking from the needs of the local people, and that's something that also the interlinked transactions do. At the same time, in order to propose and to spread alternatives with respect to the interlinked transactions, it's very important to understand the local social norms, and so how people live and how the life of people are shaped by informal institutions. Only by this way we can provide a change, an adaptation to the context, but also a local development such as the one that's also given by the microfinance institutions. In the end, I hope that this presentation have improved your knowledge, and I say you thank you for your attention.